we want to welcome everybody to the shiur, and I forgot to mention this. I'm going to make a card, actually. Remind me to make a card. We would highly appreciate everybody to subscribe. We're almost up to 1,000 subscribers, and we also have a podcast for the people that are more yeshivish and kosher. You could find us on Spotify. It's the same thing, The Light. The name of our channel is The Light. We're on all the podcasts. Today we're going to talk about the most, like I said, on my almost 22-year rabbinical career, the question that I saw the most people get zealous and mad about, that they really, really wanted me, grabbed me and said, Rabbi, how could this be, is we know that we Jews, during the 9 days between Rosh Chodesh and Tisha B'Av, which is the worst day in Jewish history, we don't have any meat, right? Even white meat, chicken meat. Obviously, fish is allowed. The question is, in Yachad Da'at, Volume 3, Teshuvah 38, they asked Rav Ovadia, a very righteous Sephardic Jew asked Rav Ovadia, I own a restaurant. Am I allowed to, do I have to close down? I'm a burger store. Nowadays, a lot of the people became more sophisticated. They have like a fish menu. But I mean, if you're a steakhouse, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Does he need to close down for these 9 days? Obviously, no. We should know. We Sephardim, the most intense laws of mourning are starting Saturday night, where we're not allowed to wear newly, freshly laundered clothes and take hot showers and shave and get haircuts and all that. That starts from next week. Music had already started from we talk about 3 weeks, and then it's 3 levels. Then there's the 9 days, and then also the 9 days it's better not to go on a vacation and start remodeling your house or build a new house, or right? Because we make our simcha less. But the most intense is obviously Tisha B'Av, but after the day of Tisha B'Av, the most severe halachot are this week, coming up week. So we want to deal with this question. Actually, today's sugya is the sugya of lifnei ver lo titen mikshol, because basically what we want to ask is, I'm a God-fearing Jew. Do I need to close down my steakhouse, or am I putting a stumbling block in front of a blind person, which means don't lead other Jews to sin? That's the real meaning. When it says in the Torah in Parsha Kedoshim, don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person, means that don't cause other Jews to sin. But the problem is that he says, if I close, they'll go to other steakhouses. They'll go to other kebab, right? Famous Middle Eastern food, kebab or shawarma. And I'm going to lose business. I'm going to lose my livelihood. So let's deal with this. It's very interesting to know that from Talmudic law, the Gemara and Ta'anit, actually the name of Hashem, 26, Tav Chavav, the Gemara clearly says there, until the time of the Talmud, it was only forbidden to eat meat in Suda Mafseket. Which means, halachically speaking, you should know. I just want to let you know, I was talking to my brother-in-law, which is a tremendous dayan and very chashiv Talmud Chacham. Everything we do, most of the stuff we do during the 3 weeks is avelut, right? We're mourning for the apple of our eye, Yerushalayim. It's the heart of the Jewish nation. David HaMelech says, Im eshkachech Yerushalayim, tishkach yemini. If we forget about Yerushalayim, it's like we forget our right hand. But a lot of it has been hugged. It's very clear from the Gemara in the end of Ta'anit that from Talmudic law, the only time it's forbidden to have meat and wine is by Seudah Mafseket. By the way, Seudah Mafseket has very severe halachot, right? You're not even allowed to have 2 types of food. That's why people eat beren jadasi, or right. The minhag of the world actually became that they have an early dinner, very early dinner. They go to mincha, and then they have Seudah Mafseket, where they take an egg, they dip it in like ash, a little bit burnt thing. They sit on the floor. They don't sit together, and you have to wash during that meal. What? Yeah. It's the minhag. It's batan. And so during that Seudah Mafseket, you're not allowed to have meat. The rest, even the day of eve of Tisha B'Av for lunch, you're allowed to have meat from the law of Talmud. But the minhag, since this is actually a phenomenal thing, I just want to say off the record, it comes out that it's a very glorious thing to be proud of as Jews. That even though usually the further away we get away from the time of the Talmud and we get less and less holy, and we come on a lower level, but this is actually exception to that rule that the Jews wanted to go above and beyond to show that the temple is the apple of our eye, and we are. A lot of people don't know we're going to have selichot literally in less than a month. Believe it or not, there's something called Tikkun Chatzot. It's in the first chapter of Shulchan Aruch where you sit on the ground and you say some Tehillim about the destruction of the temple. You have to say it after midnight. That is halachically more important than selichot, because so I think I just want to. The reason I'm just saying this, it seems that this idea that, and I said this before 2 weeks ago in my shiur, if you, under a microscope, diagnose all the 19 brachot of Shemona Esrei, more than 50% of them are talking about that we want Mashiach back. We want the Sanhedrin back, Hashiva Shoftenu, Gal Yisrael, Bonei Yerushalayim, Etzemach David, Retzeh Hashem et Avodah, right? Retzeh is saying we want the Mizbeach back, we want our altar back, right? So most of the brachot of Shemona Esrei is always our yearning that we want Mashiach in different forms. We want Hashem to rebuild Yerushalayim, right? So it could be that that's why we Jews, we went above and beyond our Talmudic duty, and we stopped. So basically, let me tell you the Rambam. The Rambam says in chapter 5 of Laws of Fasting that he says that actually the Yemenite Jews, which you love so much, the Rambam brings two different minhagim in his book, Yara Chazaka. There's a minhag that some people only stop eating meat the week of. So that's what Yemenite Jews do eat meat. If I'm not, they do eat meat the 9 days, but when it gets to the week of Tisha B'Av, like Saturday night, they don't eat meat anymore. But then the Rambam brings a second minhag. He says there are other places that already they tell the shochets to take a vacation, the ritual people that are in charge of slaughtering, for the entire 9 days, because there's no until after the Ta'anit. Now, one of the great Rishonim, which was actually from Provence, from southern France, which is near Spain, the Orchas Chaim Lelunil, he brings another. He says that the minhag already of Spanish Jews was, from his time, that they would not eat meat the entire 9 days from Rosh Chodesh. Because, now why don't we eat meat, by the way? It's very important to understand. Because the Gemara says, En simcha la b'basar b'yain, right? On the 3 regalim, Shavuot, Sukkot, Pesach, we have to have red meat. Because, let's be honest, what on YouTube, what gets millions and tens of millions of views? How to barbecue meat. What makes what's the road to make men happy and jolly? Is some good wine and some good meat. So, En simcha la b'basar b'yain. So since we want to do the polar opposite now, why we want to show that we're not happy, because it's even worse than the temple not being built. The Shekhinah Kabbalistically, if you look in the Rambam in the end of Moreh Nevuchim, and in the end of the holy book of Yecheskel, one of the great prophets, he says something very important, which is the whole Kaddish is based on this. The Rambam says, based on Yecheskel, the greatest, every second we're in Galut, where we Jews are not living in our own house and Mashiach is not here, it's the biggest Chilul Hashem possible. So that's why now the Ovadia brings something from Rav Hai Gaon, one of the very interesting Gaonim, according to the Talmud Yerushalmi. Now, we said that according to the Bavli, it's really only, we don't have any source before the Rishonim, right? The Talmudic source is the only Talmudic source that we have. There it says clearly you're not allowed to have meat on the last meal that you eat to go into the fast, right? But in the Yerushalmi, it does, very interesting, brings that women, we think, and I want to say something very important here, hashkafically. A lot of times when we think about Sadiq people, we think about men. But there's just some such pure and altruistic and angelic women we have out there. The Yerushalmi in chapter 4 of Psachim brings a very interesting minhag. Even from Talmudic times, of the Talmud Yerushalmi, it says women didn't used to have meat the 9 days. And it says the Yerushalmi praises this minhag, and Rav Haigon praises it. And he says that actually in Bavel, they used to tell all the shochtim, the people that used to slaughter the animals, the rabbis that used to slaughter the animals, that don't slaughter anything from Rosh Chodesh until the day of Tisha B'Av, because people the next day are going to need food to eat. So that's the Yerushalmi that Rav Haigon brings. So already we see that the Gaonim, right, are praising the minhag of the women that the Talmud Yerushalmi brings, that they didn't used to have meat. So to make a long story short, already Rashi had a Talmud that wrote one of the first translations of the Sidur. Because you know really what the words of the Sidur means, commentary on Sidur. His name was the Machzor Vitri. Have you ever heard of him? He was a student of Rashi. He brings down in his book that he has seen in many sources from the Geonim already that it is appropriate not to eat wine, drink wine, or have meat during the 9 days. And the Tur, which is the predecessor to the Shulchan Aruch based the whole framework, the Tur, the son of the Rosh, he brings, and I'll read for you verbatim. He says, Manhag Ashkenaz, Shayachidim nimna'im mila'echol basar mishtiyad yain hachel mishiv asar betamuz. Already from medieval times, the time of the Tur, he says that minhag of our brothers, the Ashkenazim, is that we do not eat. He says there's, this I never knew actually. He says that there was Hasidim that even during the 3 weeks they wouldn't have meat. Did you know that minhag? Some very pious Jews, the 3 weeks they wouldn't have meat. But already from Rosh Chodesh, everybody. During the 9 days, nobody had meat. And the Bet Yosef comments that the Rashba writes that, yes, in Spain also, like we mentioned before, from the Machzor Vitri and the Orchos Chaim, that yes, this is also, even though everybody agrees, according to the Talmud Bavli, it is permitted to have meat. The only time it's prohibited to have it is at the last meal right before you go into the fast, so Dam Apseket. But already the Rashba also concurs with the minhag that you should not have any meat during the 9 days. And he actually says something very important. He says some people may think we could play, it's a minhag, so let's just, who cares? I'm not such a religious person. He says, Poretz Geder, the Rashba writes, Nachash. He says somebody that doesn't want to listen to the great rabbis of the generation, and he doesn't want to follow Klal Yisrael, the whole entire Klal Yisrael, whether Sfaradim, Ashkenazim, but he wants to just break the fence and do his own thing, he gets cursed by the rabbis. They say, inshallah, a thing should bite him. A snake. So the Rashba says, don't come play games with me and say, try to be reformed, deformed. And say, since it's a minhag, the Rashba writes very stark, he says, this became the minhag of Klal Yisrael, right? And Poretz Geder Yishachneu Nachash. And the Shulchan Aruch in Tov Kuf, chapter 551, concurs with this. And he says this is also the minhag of Jerusalem and all the... So it's the minhag of Ashkenaz, Sfarad, and it became the minhag of Eretz Yisrael also, that they do not have any. So now, how could you have your steakhouse open? The show's going to be... So here, there's a very interesting Gemara. So licha'ira, you're doing something wrong by having your steakhouse or kebab or shawarma store open, your meat store open, because the Rashba just said, you have to follow the minhag. By the way, there's a very important Gemara in Ta'anit based on the Haftarah we're going to read next week, Shabbat Nachamu. It says, Sisu Yerushalayim giluba ohaveh mita'abelim aleha. He says, so it says, The Gemara there says, Kol amit'abel. See, you can't have it. You can't have your cake and eat it too, right? You can't have your pie and eat it too. The Gemara says, whoever suffered and went and didn't take hot showers and did all the laws of mourning for Yerushalayim is going to be zoche, merit to see its rebuilding. But whoever went and disgraced the custom of Klal Yisrael and just threw parties during the 3 weeks, right? And had meat and made believe that, the greatest Chilul Hashem possible, like the Rambam says in Moreh Nevuchim, that the Bet HaMikdash is not built and we don't have our prophets and we don't have, right? It's Hester Panim. By the way, the Talmud Yerushalmi in Perichet says, En lecha shah kosher yoser ba'olam mi'oto shah sha'amar Hashem anochi haster aster panai. The Yerushalmi says in Parshat Azinu, says Hashem says there's going to be one day that I'm going to hide my face from you, right? So the Yerushalmi says that was the worst tragic news possible in the world, right? So all these things that we're doing, not having the meat and but you can't have it both ways, right? The only people that are going to be zochet to be in the party of Mashiach are the people that suffered and felt bad and followed all the ta'aniyot. But so what should this person do? So that now we're getting, the second part of the shir is getting the sugya of lifnei iver lo titen mechshol, which means very simply, we Jews are commanded, and perhaps maybe next year we'll do another shir. Are you allowed to sell lingerie and swimsuits or like tank tops? Because in Israel, especially, all your customers are Jewish. You're causing women, to be non-modest. Same thing here. These people shouldn't be having meat when you're serving them meat. But the problem here is that this person is economically challenged. So he's worried that if he doesn't do it, he's going to lose his customers to his competition. And he's going to go bankrupt. So there's a Gemara in Avodah Zarah Daf Vav Amud Bet that says, this that it's forbidden to lead another Jew to sin is only, for example, a Nazir. Right? So let's say there's a Nazir and you have wine. So a Nazirite is not allowed to have wine. So if he has no access to wine and you cross the river in your boat and go give it to him, you went lifnei iver lo titen mechshol. But if he himself has a boat and could cross the river and come to the bar on this side of the river, if you give it to him, right? Which means it has to be impossible for him to do the sin without you. So therefore, you're his partners in crime. It's forbidden for you to give him the key to do it. But if he doesn't need you, right? There's your option A, but there's option B, C, D, E, F, right? Because he has a car, he has a boat, he could go to another person and get wine from them people. From Torah law, you're not over on lifnei iver lo titen mechshol. You understand? Because he could get to what he needs even without you, right? Now,
can you say Adam hu moed also applies here? A person is only forewarned.
Yeah, no, that's the Gabe Nezikin. This is the Gabe, all the other mitzvahs of the Torah.
Just only Nezikin?
Yeah. Adam Muad La'olam is the Gabe, happened to be learning Choshen Mishpat for the last year and a half. Doesn't apply here. No, that's a different sugya. This is a sugya in Yoredeya. Isur veheter, right? Like, I'll tell you, for example, there's a whole shaila, and Rabbi Akiva Eiger brings, can a woman give a haircut to a man if the guy, can you be a barber and give a haircut to a child, a Jewish child that wants to cut off his payas, right? So all these are sugyas of lifnei iver, right? So there's a very, very fundamental Mishnah Lamelech, which was one of the most important commentaries on the Rambam. He says no. He says that the Gemara says lifnei iver only applies if it's possible to do the sin only through you, is not saying necessarily only through you, through any Jew. But the Mishnah Lamelech holds that Aval im lo yimatzeh derech la'avor ela al yedei isur acher, if the person is only able to do his sin through, Like, let's say we're living in a Haredi community in Bnei Brak, right? There's no goyim that are going to assist him. Nobody's going to sell this guy meat, right? So they also have a problem of lifnei iver. You understand? So he says then there is a biblical law of lifnei iver lo diten mikshol. He's not 100% clear, but when it means a Jew, doesn't mean you on an individual. You understand? Macro on micro. It means he says that no Jew would be able to assist him, but if it's possible that no Jew should, because really no Jew should be helping another Jew sin, right? So he says then, so it comes out a problem here for the restaurant guy. Okay, really nobody should be giving meat to these people. You understand? So according to the Mishnah Lamelech, there's a problem, because as long as no Jew should be assisting this guy to give, the heter of the Gemara and Avodah Zarah doesn't apply. Now Rabbi Ovadia goes on his, because you also have to understand the crux of this issue is that really this Rabbi Ovadia is trying to find the heter. I'm just trying to tell you psychologically what's going on in Rabbi Ovadia's head, because he does bring in the end of the tshuva that the marrying poskim that do hold that the guy should actually, this guy's financially, stressed out, and he has a competitor that is going to steal his business, and he's afraid that he's going to go into foreclosure and bankruptcy. So he brings a very interesting. It's very interesting to note that the Chida agrees to this. Geono Zeno agrees to the Mishnah Lamelech, but there's somebody that argues on him. His name Shalot Teshuvot Penei Menachem, Rabbi Moshe ben Kinishti. He says that this chidush of the Mishnah Lamelech is not accepted, and he holds shekol sheyachol la'avor afilu al yidei sachel. It doesn't matter, as long as another Jew is available to assist this guy to do his forbidden action, then you're not forbidden either. So according to him, according to this logic, the chief rabbinate of Israel gives glad kosher or kosher status to. They don't require, right? We're talking about Israel where everything is by law and order. They don't require. It's not part of their protocol. I just want to say something fascinating. I get very irritated when I go to kosher restaurants that have goyish music, because if you understand Kabbalistically what's going on with this, I don't call it even music, noise pollution of the the foul and savage music. I've talked to the OU, OK, all the big kashrus. Part of the contract of every kosher restaurant is that they should not put non-Jewish music. Did you know that? That's why you could demand that they change it. It's part of their contract that they get certified.
Here or Israel?
Here, even in America. So let's go further. The Rav Ovadia brings a proof from the Sefer Lev Shomeya. It's unbelievable how much. It's like a never-ending. He's like an encyclopedia, literally. They bring a proof from the Ritva that the Ritva agrees to the Pnei Moshe, which means like this: as long there is no Isra of Liftei Iver Titen Michshol, as long as you're not the only source of the sin, right? He can get it without you. Now, the Chatan Sofer and the son of the Chatan Sofer, the Ktav Sofer, also agree with this. So, like I said before, Rav Ovadia says, perhaps in our case we could be lenient. Why? Because his competitors that also have a kosher certification, they're not required to close. So if you also close, you may lose your customers to them, and then they're going to get, you're buddy with them. You're their to-go place, shawarma place or whatever, and then, So Rav Ovadia, in the end of the day, is lenient. He says this: you don't need to close your store, and that's why you see. He says, first of all, there's another reason to be makel here. Here, the food is 1,000% kosher. It's the day that it's triggering. You understand? The day is triggering it that it's inappropriate to eat it, right? But there's nothing halakhically wrong with the with the meat. It could be Bet Yosef and right the glad kosher. You understand? So he says even though there's a Tosfot that says in the case of the side of the river that he said the Ran, Tosfot, and Rosh hold that there's still a rabbinical sin. Okay, from Torah law, if the guy could get to the forbidden stuff even without you, there's no problem of lifnei iver lo titen mikshol. But there's still an Isur Midurabanan. But Rav Ovadia says that's not a problem either.
What's the issue?
That you're causing the Chachamim are not happy with you.
Even though he's coming himself?
Yeah. Which means even though he could cross the river himself and go to somebody else, but why shouldn't you? They hold there's, right, according to those Rishonim, the Taisvis, it's very Chashav Rishonim, the Ran and the Rosh, they hold that still there's an Isur Durabanan. Betray Avri Dinar, right? So Rav Ovadia says that there's a Radvaz that solves that problem also. The Radvaz says that would only be from an Isur Torah that the Rosh and the Ram, the Ran and the Tosot hold that. But here, not having meat is not even an Isur Durabanan really, technically, right? It's a Minhag. And he says it's a Mefurish. And then Rav Ovadia also brings another reason that we should be lenient. You know why? The Ramban. The Ramban has a very interesting shita. He says, "She'im yachol la'asot ha'isur be'atzmo, en isur klal mishum lifnei iver lo titen mishol afinu mid'Rabbanan." The Ramban says, "Lifnei iver liten mishol" is a technical thing. You have to actually assist the guy, right? But if the guy grabs him, if you're not assisting him at all, right? You're passively open restaurant, you know. So you're not considered partners in crime, and there's not even a rabbinical isur.
How's that assisting?
So here, yeah, like according to the Ramban, you would be only over lifnei ten mikshol if you actually put it in his mouth. But if he's doing all the actions, you understand, you're mamish like his shutaf. We found his sherikeshi. You're proactively.
Mamash putting him in his mouth.
Yeah, but the Ramban holds if you just put it in front of him, right, and you're not proactively helping him.
And if the guy's handicapped, he's eating like this the whole.
That the Ramban for sure would hold this usher. If there's a handicapped guy, you should know this. By the way, this sugi is very important for people that own nursing homes. That's why halachically, a person that does own a nursing home, he has to give his Jewish things the option of having kosher. This is a big sugya. I have to confess that the sugya of lifnei iver lo titen mikshol, I'm not a big. Actually, somebody asked me a very interesting kasha. Actually, they were a woman from Santa Monica. She said that her Brentwood woman. She said she was going to ask her best friend wants her to raise money for the Cancer Society, so they invite all their Jewish friends to like a get together, and they get hors d'oeuvres, and a lot of the hors d'oeuvres are not kosher. Are they allowed to do it or not? So my Rebbe, one of my poskim, Rabbi Golfa, said no, they shouldn't do such a thing, because then it's mamish, then it's more machmer. So bottom line is, the reason why we're not allowed to have meat is a minhag. Therefore, by going against a minhag, it could be you're going against a neder, because if you do a mitzvah, this is a very important halacha. Once you do a mitzvah that you're not obligated into, like keeping Rabbeinu Tam or putting Rabbeinu Tam to fill in, you have to continue doing it. It becomes a neder, even though you didn't say it. If you don't want to continue doing it, you have to do hatarat nedarim. So that's the problem that it's facing. This became the minhag, like a neder of Klal Yisrael, neder mitzvah, to not have meat. But the problem is, the issue here is that everybody would hold. Basically, what Rav Ovadia is trying to say is everything's rabbinic over here. There's nothing from Torah law. You understand? So, bottom line is that since this guy may lose his livelihood if he closes down his meat restaurant, he's allowed to be open, and the problem is that he's also between a rock and a hard place. The chief rabbinate, the person that's giving the certification for all his competitors, are letting them be open. And he says, the custom became that a lot of these there's another reason, by the way. It says in Shalut Teshuvot HaRav Samim, this is actually true, by the way. I know for a fact, being in a Kiruv shul, right? We were there together for many years. There's a lot of people that may not even fast on Tisha B'Av, or definitely Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. The problem, this, unfortunately, is that if you close down all the kosher restaurants, the guy's going to go to a non-kosher restaurant. Even in Israel, there's Armenians, Arabs, or like Russian Jews that are really not even Jewish, or that have non-kosher restaurants. So bottom line is, Rav Ovadia says, you're allowed to keep your restaurant open. And for sure, if you know there's sick people in your community, maybe a lot of people, because sick people that need, their doctor said, you have to have red meat because of your hemoglobin or iron, right? Mm-hmm. They're allowed to, right, have meat. But Rav Ovadia says something very beautiful in the end here. He says, if it's possible for you to stay in business and give them only chicken meat or turkey meat, white meat, rather than red meat, you've already gained something very, very big. Because Rav Ovadia says, it seems from the Gemara, basar, right? We always have to go positive and negative. In order to get happy on the 3 regalim, you should really have red meat, right? Because red meat is the real, right? There's nothing like a steak. Come on, let's not kid ourselves. What? Yeah. It seems that Rav Ovadia says that red meat is much more chashuv than just white meat. So Rav Ovadia says that there are people that argue on me, but I would just end off on the note that we, unfortunately today, in the vast majority of the world, practically speaking, there are many, 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 many people, right? We're not living in the old. Let's be honest. There's many, many people I know personally that if you take away the option of a kosher restaurant, they will go to the non-kosher restaurant. Especially, it's not only one day; it's 9 days. It's almost like a week and a half. So for that reason, and the reason that there's sick people, and the reason that anyways, the guy could go and just make his own barbecue, right? So there's no problem of lifnei iver lo titen mikshol. But of course, if you look at Rav Ovadia's lashon, a person that is wealthy, and he could, that would be a tremendous kiddush Hashem, that he takes meat off his menu, and he serves pescado, fish, which is so healthy and full of omega-3s, then that would be the best thing. But here we're talking a case that the guy's worried that he's going to lose all his customers. Then, a man's got to do what a man's got to do. There's many Rishonim and sources for this person to be Mako.